Someone disrespects you, and what do? Most men, they react. They get angry, defensive. Maybe they lash out verbally. Maybe they even throw a punch if they're stupid enough. They think responding with force is strength. It's not. It's the weakest possible move. Because the moment you react emotionally to disrespect, you've already lost. You've given that person control over your emotions, your reputation, and possibly your future. But there's another way, a way that's far more effective, far more dangerous, and far less obvious. Machiavelli understood this. He understood that the men who respond to disrespect with rage are not the ones who win. The ones who win are the ones who respond with calculated silence. With strategy. With the kind of psychological precision that makes people regret ever disrespecting them in the first place. Not immediately, not obviously, but eventually. And that's what makes it so effective. If you want more tactics like this, hit like and subscribe. Let's start with something most people don't understand. When someone disrespects you, they're not really testing your strength. They're testing your boundaries. They're checking whether you're someone worth respecting or someone who's easy prey. The animal kingdom understands this instinctively. A wolf doesn't respond to a challenge by trying to outrage the challenger. It assesses the threat, establishes its position, and makes a calculated move. Most humans have lost this ability. We've been taught that emotional expression is honesty, that reacting is authenticity, that losing your temper is standing up for yourself. It's not. It's surrender disguised as strength. Here's what Machiavelli understood that most men still don't. Disrespect is a transaction. Someone is testing whether they can lower your status in the eyes of others or in your own eyes and get away with it. The moment they succeed in making you react emotionally, they've won the transaction. They've shown that you can be provoked, that you care what they think, that you're controlled by emotion. Now they have leverage. Now they have power over you. So the first rule is simple. Don't give them the reaction they want. But here's where it gets more complex. Not reacting doesn't mean being passive. Not reacting doesn't mean accepting the disrespect. It means responding strategically. It means understanding what just happened and deciding what you're going to do about it with cold precision. When someone disrespects you in public, they're making a public statement. They're saying, this person is someone I can disrespect without consequence. They're saying it to you, but more importantly, they're saying it to everyone watching. So your response has to account for that audience. The Machiavellian approach is not to defend yourself. Defense is weakness. It's reactive. It's saying, I need to explain myself. I need to prove I'm worthy of respect. That's the language of someone already losing. Instead, the Machiavellian approach is complete calm. Unshakable calm. When someone disrespects you and you respond with no emotion, with a slight smile, maybe even with humor, what you're communicating is that their disrespect is so insignificant that it doesn't even register. It doesn't affect you. And that's devastating to someone who was trying to wound you, because they've now failed at their objective publicly in front of everyone. You've shown that you're above it, not morally above it, but above it in terms of status, in terms of power. You don't fight over scraps with dogs. You don't even acknowledge the noise. This is the beginning of psychological dominance. Because once people realize that disrespecting you doesn't give them the reaction they want, doesn't lower your status, doesn't hurt you, they have to reconsider their approach. And most people, they won't continue with a strategy that's not working. They'll back down, not because they fear you, because they sense something deeper. They sense that you're not playing by the same rules they are. But here's what most people don't understand about Machiavelli. He wasn't just talking about avoiding reactions. He was talking about systematic positioning. He was talking about making sure that the person who disrespected you eventually realizes they made a terrible mistake. Not through your anger, but through consequences. Through subtle shifts in how you treat them, in what you do and don't do for them, in how others perceive them based on how you treat them. When someone disrespects you, one of the most powerful moves is to treat them with excessive politeness, with courtesy, with the kind of formal respect you'd show to someone far above or far below you. Not warm respect, cold respect. The kind of respect that creates distance, that removes them from your inner circle, that makes it clear they've been downgraded in your mind. Most people don't even notice this shift at first, but they feel it. There's a coldness now, a formality, a distance that wasn't there before. And suddenly they realize that they've damaged something. Not your pride, something more valuable, your regard. And you can't get that back by apologizing because you've done nothing wrong. You've been nothing but polite. This is where most people fail to understand the Machiavellian approach. They think it's about being fake, about being cold to everyone. It's not. It's about being selectively warm. You treat people who respect you with genuine warmth, genuine interest, genuine availability. You treat people who've disrespected you with politeness and distance. And over time, this creates a status hierarchy that becomes visible to everyone around you. People notice who you're close with and who you're not. They understand that proximity to you is something that has to be earned. And respect is the currency. Now, let's talk about a different kind of disrespect. The kind that happens in more intimate contexts. A friend who disrespects you. A family member. A romantic partner. This is where most people make their biggest mistakes. Because when it's someone close, they try to handle it with emotion. They try to have the conversation. And they try to explain how hurt they feel. And in doing so, they reveal their vulnerability. They show that this person has the ability to hurt them, and anyone who knows they can hurt you has power over you. The Machiavellian approach is different. It's slower. It's quieter. When someone close to you disrespects you, you don't address it in the moment. You don't cry. You don't yell. You acknowledge it internally, and you begin the process of removing that person from your life. Not dramatically. Not with a big confrontation. You just become less available. You share less. You confide less. You plan less with them. You're kind when you see them, but you're no longer present. You're present with other people. You're present with your goals, your growth, your inner circle. They've been moved to the outer circle. This is crucial because it does several things at once. First, it removes the power they had over you. You're no longer emotionally invested in their approval. Second, it often causes them to realize what they've lost. When someone close to you gradually becomes distant, when they notice you're no longer including them in your life, when they see you thriving without them, something shifts. They understand that the disrespect cost them something real. Not your public respect, but your private regard, your time, your presence. And that's far more valuable. But here's the thing about the Machiavellian approach. It's not about revenge. It's not about making them suffer. It's about repositioning yourself so that disrespect becomes unaffordable for them. It becomes not worth the cost, because the cost is your regard, and your regard is valuable. Let's talk about workplace disrespect, because this is where most people actually encounter it. A boss who disrespects you, a colleague who undermines you, a subordinate who challenges your authority. Most people respond with either weakness, going to HR, tattling about it, or with direct confrontation that escalates the situation. Both are mistakes. The Machiavellian approach is to recognize that workplace dynamics are about positioning. If your boss disrespects you, it's usually because he's testing whether you're someone to be taken seriously or someone he can dismiss. The response is not to prove him wrong by being good at your job. He already knows whether you're good at your job. The response is to become less dependent on his approval. You document your accomplishments not for him, but for the record. You build relationships with other decision makers, other powerful people in the organization. You become valuable to people other than him. And slowly, the power dynamic shifts. He needs you more than you need his approval. When a colleague undermines you, most people want to confront them, to prove they're lying, to rally people to their side. This is a mistake. This is playing on their battlefield. Instead, the Machiavellian response is to observe, to understand exactly what they're doing and why. Then, to position yourself so that their undermining attempts backfire. You make them look foolish without saying a word against them. You let their own strategy defeat them. How? By being more competent, more connected, more valuable to the people who matter. By making it clear through your actions, not your words, that they're not your equal, that you're operating on a different level, and with a subordinate who challenges your authority. Most people either crush the rebellion immediately through force, or they try to win the person over through understanding and compassion. Both approaches fail. The Machiavellian approach is to acknowledge the challenge, treat it with the seriousness it deserves, and then slowly remove that person's power. You remove them from key projects. You reduce their influence. You're not cruel about it. You're just professional. You're just allocating resources where they're most effective. And by removing their ability to have impact, you've neutralized the threat without creating a martyr. This brings us to something important. The Machiavellian approach might sound passive, but it's actually the most active response possible. It's just active in ways that most people don't recognize until it's too late. You're not responding to the disrespect. You're responding to the person who disrespected you. You're restructuring your entire relationship with them based on the information they just gave you about themselves. They showed you they're someone who disrespects others. They showed you they don't respect your boundaries or your status. So you respond by showing them what the consequences of that are. Here's where psychology comes in. Most people understand disrespect as an emotional thing. Someone hurts them, they respond to the hurt. But Machiavelli understood disrespect as information. When someone disrespects you, they're telling you something about how they perceive you and how safe they feel challenging you. That information is valuable because now you know exactly how to reposition yourself relative to this person. Let's say someone publicly embarrasses you, humiliates you in front of other people. The immediate response is shame. You want to hide, or you want to lash out and restore your image. But notice what's happening. You're letting their action control your response. You're letting their attack determine your behavior. The Machiavellian response is different. You don't respond in the moment. You don't defend yourself. You acknowledge it internally, and you wait. You let the moment pass. The people watching will quickly move on to the next thing, but you remember, and you make a note. The question then is, what do you do with that information? Some people, they'll never get another opportunity to disrespect you because you're going to restructure your relationship with them. Some people, you might decide to use as a teacher. What did they exploit? What vulnerability did they expose? Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you exactly where your defenses are weak. But notice the difference. You're not reacting to the disrespect. You're using it. You're making it part of your strategy for growth. And that's the highest level of the Machiavellian approach. It's not just about putting people in their place. It's about using every interaction, including the negative ones, to position yourself more effectively in the world. There's a concept in Machiavellianism called strategic forgetting. It sounds cold, and it is. But it's powerful. When someone disrespects you, you don't forgive them emotionally. You forget about the emotional component entirely. You remember the fact, the information, but you release the feeling attached to it. This allows you to interact with them without resentment, without that simmering anger that clouds your judgment. You're free to treat them exactly as they deserve to be treated, which is often with complete professionalism and zero regard. This is where a lot of people get confused. They think being Machiavellian means being cruel, being manipulative, being intentionally mean. It doesn't. It means being clean. It means not letting emotion dirty the water. It means treating people according to their value and their behavior, not according to your hurt feelings. Now let's talk about power dynamics at a deeper level, because disrespect doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists because of how you're positioning yourself in the world. If you're positioning yourself as someone who needs respect, then you'll get disrespect. People can feel the desperation. If you're positioning yourself as someone who earns respect through competence, consistency, and strategic positioning, then you'll get respect. Think about the people you respect most. Do you respect them because they demand it? No. You respect them because they've demonstrated something valuable. They're either powerful, or they're aligned with power, or they're competent in a way that matters, or they're wealthy, or they're wise, or they're rare in some way that makes them valuable. Whatever they have, you respect it. And importantly, you wouldn't dream of disrespecting them because you understand the cost of being associated with someone who's outside their good graces. This is what the Machiavellian understands. Respect is not something you demand. It's something you create through positioning. And the positioning isn't about being nice or being impressive to everyone. It's about being clear and unavoidable in your value. So when someone disrespects you, before you do anything, ask yourself, what have I been communicating about my own value that made this person think they could disrespect me? Have I been too available? Have I been too eager to please? Have I been declining things that would demonstrate my value? Have I been positioning myself as someone who needs external validation? These are the real questions, because sometimes disrespect is information that you need to hear. It's telling you that you've been positioning yourself poorly, that you've been signaling scarcity and need rather than abundance and choice. And that's actually valuable information if you're willing to listen to it. The highest level of the Machiavellian approach to disrespect is this. You receive the disrespect with equanimity. You acknowledge it as information. You immediately begin the process of repositioning yourself. And you do this with such grace, such calm, that the person who disrespected you never even realizes what happened. They just gradually notice that something has shifted. They're less connected to you. They have less influence over you. Their opinions matter less. Their approval is less valuable. And they never see the hand that moved them. They just know they're further away now. Some people, if they realize what happened, they might try to repair the relationship. And that's where you have a choice. You can accept the repair if it serves you, or you can continue the slow removal. The key is that you're never emotional about it. You're never punishing them for their disrespect. You're simply aligning your actions with the information they gave you about themselves. This is the opposite of what most people do. Most people either stew in resentment, which poisons them from the inside, or they forgive too quickly, which gives the other person permission to do it again. The Machiavellian way is neither. It's clean, it's strategic, it's final. Now, let's talk about what happens over time when you consistently handle disrespect this way. Because it's not just about individual interactions, it's about building a reputation. When people understand that disrespecting you comes with a cost, not an immediate cost, but a real cost, they think twice. They might not know exactly what the cost is, but they sense that it exists. They sense that you're not someone to casually disrespect. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to do anything aggressive for people to feel this. In fact, aggression is the thing that tips it into obvious revenge, which undermines your position. You just have to consistently, calmly demonstrate that disrespect has consequence. That proximity to you is valuable. That regard from you is valuable. And that losing that is a real loss. Over time, you start to attract only people who respect you. People who've tried to disrespect you have naturally moved away. People who understand your value are the ones around you. And your life becomes full of people who respect you, which means you rarely even have to deal with disrespect anymore. You've solved the problem, not by becoming stronger or more aggressive, but by becoming more selective. The final thing to understand about the Machiavellian approach is that it requires you to never be desperate. It requires you to always have options. It requires you to be willing to walk away. Because the moment someone senses that you need them, that you can't afford to lose them, they know they can disrespect you with impunity. The moment they realize you have other options, other relationships, other sources of value, suddenly your regard becomes something worth protecting. So the real answer to the question of how to respond to disrespect is not about what you do in the moment. It's about who you become. It's about positioning yourself as someone who's valuable enough that disrespecting you costs something real, someone worth respecting. Not because you demand respect, but because you've made it clear that you don't need it. And in not needing it, you get it. This is the paradox that Machiavelli understood. The man who seems above seeking approval always has the most approval. The man who seems willing to walk away always has people clinging to him. Here's what separates the men who are actually powerful from the men who just seem powerful. The actual powerful men, they don't respond to every slight. They don't track every offense. They understand that disrespect is sometimes a sign of ignorance on the other person's part. And sometimes it's a sign that you haven't positioned yourself clearly enough. Either way, the response is the same. You don't react. You reposition. But here's where it becomes even more complex. Because as you start to master this approach, as you start to see disrespect as information instead of injury, something happens. You become harder to disrespect. Not because you're more aggressive or threatening, but because you're genuinely less invested in people's opinions of you. You care what people think of you less, not because you're arrogant, but because you're focused on something else. You're focused on your position, your growth, your strategy. And when people sense that genuine lack of desperation, they automatically treat you differently. They show you more respect, not because they fear you, but because they can sense that you're not playing the game they thought you were. You're playing a different game entirely. And they're not sure of the rules. This is the paradox that most people never figure out. The more you pursue respect, the less you get it. The less you need it, the more automatically flows to you. Because respect is something that attaches to people who have other things to do, other priorities, other values, not attachment to how other people see them. The men who have the most respect are the men who would be completely fine if everyone disrespected them tomorrow. Not because they don't care about anything, but because their sense of self-worth is not dependent on external validation. And when people sense that, when they realize they can't hurt you by disrespecting you, they either start respecting you or they move on to someone easier to manipulate. Either way, you win. So let me ask you directly, who in your life have you been allowing to disrespect you? And more importantly, what have you been communicating about yourself that's made them think they could do it? Because that's where this has to start, not with them, with you, with what you've been signaling about your own worth. The next time someone disrespects you, you have a choice. You can react emotionally, which is weak. You can confront them, which is playing on their battlefield. Or you can respond with strategic silence, with repositioning, with the understanding that this person has just given you valuable information about your relative standing and their character. You can use that information. You can use it to reshape the relationship, to restructure your priorities, to position yourself better in the world. This isn't about being fake. It's not about being cold to everyone. It's about being honest with yourself about who deserves your warmth and your time. It's about understanding that not everyone has earned the privilege of your regard. And that's not cruel. That's just truth. That's just power. The real strength, comes not from defending yourself against disrespect, but from being someone that disrespecting is a mistake. Not because you've threatened them, but because they've put themselves outside your orbit. And being outside your orbit, in a world where you're moving forward, matters far more than they realize. It's not a punishment you've given them. It's a consequence they've chosen. And that's the highest level of mastery. When people understand their own choices, created their own consequences, and you never had to lift a finger.